Can you imagine turning a $50 loan from your dad into a global empire worth over $200 billion? Picture this: a quiet, unassuming runner, not even the star of his team, who has a crazy idea. An idea that wouldn't start on a winner's podium, but in the trunk of a beat-up car at dusty track meets. This is the story of how a tiny loan, an obsessive coach, and a huge bet on some Japanese running shoes created one of the biggest brands on earth. A brand so powerful that its logo needs no words. This is the story of Nike. It all begins in the 1950s with Phil Knight, a quiet kid from Portland, Oregon. He wasn't a natural athlete, but he had determination. At the University of Oregon, he ran middle distance on the track team, pushing himself hard but never quite reaching greatness. He'd never win an Olympic medal or break records. But Knight had something more valuable. He had Bill Bowerman as his coach. Bowerman was legendary, but not for the usual reasons. What really set him apart was his obsession with shoes. While other coaches focused on training, Bowerman was in his garage at night, literally tearing apart his athletes' shoes, trying to shave off ounces, experimenting with different materials. Anything to make his runners faster. This obsession planted a seed in Knight's mind. After graduating, he did a stint in the Army, then headed to Stanford for his MBA. For a small business class paper, Knight detailed what he called his crazy idea: that high-quality, low-cost running shoes from Japan could break the stranglehold German brands like Adidas had on the American market. At the time, this seemed absurd. Made in Japan meant cheap, inferior goods. In 1962, 24-year-old Phil Knight did something audacious. He took his life savings and bought a ticket to Japan to turn his crazy idea into reality, even though he had no business experience, no contacts, and no real plan. He arrived in Kobe and somehow arranged a meeting with the Onitsuka Tiger Shoe Company. Knight walked into that meeting terrified. When the executives asked what company he represented, Knight panicked. He had no company. So he made one up on the spot: Blue Ribbon Sports. Then he pitched himself as the man who could distribute their tiger shoes throughout the western United States. Remember, this is a guy with zero distribution experience and zero credibility. But Knight had done his homework. He knew the American market and spoke with quiet conviction. In a twist that changed history, the executives believed him. They gave him exclusive distribution rights for the western U.S. Knight walked out in a daze. He had a deal. Now he just needed to figure out how to actually deliver. Knight returned to Oregon and got an accounting job, waiting for the shoes to arrive. Months passed. Finally, in late 1963, the first samples arrived. Knight's first move was sending 2 pairs to his old coach, Bill Bowerman, hoping maybe he'd buy them. What happened next shocked him. Bowerman didn't just want to buy the shoes. He wanted to partner up. The coach saw an opportunity to finally design shoes exactly as he'd envisioned. On January 25, 1964, Blue Ribbon Sports became official with a handshake. They each put in $500, Knight borrowing his half from his deeply skeptical father. Total starting capital, $1,000. The business model was simple. Phil Knight would sell shoes from the trunk of his green Plymouth Valiant at track meets across the Pacific Northwest. He'd pop the trunk between races and talk to runners and coaches, getting immediate feedback. The first year, they sold 1,300 pairs, making $8,000 in revenue. Not profit, revenue. But the concept was proven. By 1966, they opened their first retail location. Sales kept doubling, then tripling. By 1969, Blue Ribbon Sports hit $1 million in sales, and Phil Knight finally quit his accounting job. He was all in. As Blue Ribbon Sports grew, so did problems with Onitsuka Tiger. They were slow to innovate, and worse, Knight discovered they were trying to cut him out and find new American distributors. By 1971, Knight knew they had to break free and create their own brand. They needed a name and a logo. Fast. The name Nike came from their first employee, Jeff Johnson, who said it came to him in a dream, named after the Greek goddess of victory. Knight wasn't sold on it, but they were on a deadline, so Nike it was. For the logo, Knight approached Carolyn Davidson, a graphic design student at Portland State, offering her $2 an hour. She worked on it for about 17 hours. For a grand total of $35, she created the Swoosh, a simple, fluid checkmark designed to convey motion and speed. Knight's first reaction? I don't love it, but maybe it will grow on me. He needed something immediately, so he went with it. On May 30th, 1971, Blue Ribbon Sports officially became Nike Inc. Nike went public in 1980. But the mid-'80s proved tough. Their basketball division was struggling badly, and they desperately needed something big. That something was a rookie from North Carolina named Michael Jordan. There was just one problem. Jordan wanted to sign with Adidas. He loved their shoes and their brand. Nike was his third choice at best, but Nike made him an offer he couldn't refuse. A 5-year, $2.5 million deal. An astronomical sum for a rookie at the time, plus his very own signature shoe line, the Air Jordan. It was a massive gamble that could have bankrupted the company. Nike's internal projections hoped to sell $3 million worth of Air Jordans over 3 years. In the first year alone, they sold $126 million worth. $126 million. The NBA even provided free marketing by banning the original red and black Air Jordans for violating their uniform policy. Jordan was fined $5,000 every game he wore them. Nike happily paid the fines and ran commercials celebrating their banned shoes. The controversy made them even more desirable. The Air Jordan became a cultural phenomenon, transcending sports entirely. Then, in 1988, came 3 words that would define not just Nike, but athletic culture itself. Just do it. The slogan wasn't about shoes, it was a universal challenge to overcome fear, push limits, take action. The effect was immediate and staggering. From 1988 to 1998, Nike's worldwide sales exploded from $877 million to over $9.2 billion. The swoosh became one of the most recognizable symbols on the planet. Phil Knight remained Nike's CEO until 2004 and retired as chairman in 2016. He transformed a crazy idea from a college paper and a car trunk full of shoes into a global empire. The story of Nike proves that world-changing ideas can come from anywhere. A coach obsessed with shaving seconds off a stopwatch, a waffle iron on a Sunday morning, or a banned pair of sneakers. It shows how a $35 logo can become a billion-dollar symbol recognized worldwide. But above all, it's a story about believing in an idea when everyone thinks you're crazy, betting everything on that belief, and having the courage to just do it. Phil Knight's journey proves you don't have to be the best athlete to completely change the game. You just need the vision to see what others don't, and the guts to make it real.
So, if you enjoy stories about how ordinary people built extraordinary empires, be sure to subscribe to Millionaire Elite and check out more of our videos.